All right. Well, good morning. We're going to get started right on time. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar titled 8 Best Practices World-Class Experience Organizations Do. You're going to be hearing from the DiJulius Group's Chief Revolution Officer, John DiJulius, in just a moment. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention two quick things. I will be on the entire time John will be presenting this morning. So if you have any questions for me, logistics-wise, how to reach out, how to get more information, technical questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. I'll make sure you get everything that you need. And then the second piece is that John will be taking live questions at the end of his presentation today. So if there's anything that you would like him to answer before we end our time together, please feel free to put that in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And now I'm going to turn it over to John.
Thank you, Lindsay. Welcome, Revolutionaries. I'm excited about today's presentation. This is, I believe, everything you will need to make 2024 your year, that you make the experience you deliver your single biggest competitive advantage, become the brand your customers, clients, guests can't live without, and stop competing on price. First off, the number one question that I get, and I think everyone is weighing on the mind, is where are we at with the recession? Is it coming? Did it already start? Is it inevitable? But I'm here to tell you that we've been in a recession for well over 2.5 years now, a customer service recession. And everyone on this call is a customer service expert. Not only your business leaders, but your customers. And we've all been on that lousy end of daily interactions, professionally and personally. And why? Because, there's many things going on. Besides out of the pandemic, the great resignation, staff shortages, supply chain issues, there's an experience gap today. An experience gap is, that we're due to inflation, we're all paying a lot more, or we may all be charging a lot more. Yet what our customers, and again, use customers for in lieu of whatever you may call them. You may have patients, tenants, clients, whatever it may be. But we as customers are getting less. Have you heard of shrinkflation? Shrinkflation is a disguised, shady way of raising prices, if you will. So if you like your Doritos or your Gatorade, what you may not have realized is you're getting less. You're getting 6 less chips, 4 less ounces than you used to, but you're still paying the same price. That could be a smaller entree at out to dinner, and that could be when you book an 1.5-hour massage or facial, you're only getting 80 minutes. The next topic I know everyone is just over the top with is tipflation, which is also commonly known as guilt tipping. And now everywhere we go, we're getting asked for a tip. Someone might be just bar scanning, a magazine at the convenience store, and when they turn around their iPad and they're looking at us, it's like, we're guilted into it. So I want my share. So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to ask you for a tip. Okay, I want in. And then I don't know how many people saw this, and this is really important. About 3 months ago, the U.S. Surgeon General said there's an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And one of his quotes was, "Social connection is as fundamental to our mental and physical health as our food, water, and sleep." It's really, really serious. The work from home, whether you love it or hate it, has only increased that. So is social isolation a Gen Z and millennial problem? Well, they do say that millennials, 22% have no friends, 30% feel lonely, and 33% have no best friends. And that's shocking. And that's our current and future generation of workforce. But they say every generation is reported, the loneliest they've ever been. So what does that mean? That means we have to build experiences both for our customers and our employee team members that bring them together, create community at our Customer Service Revolution Conference in October. Our theme this year was Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu. Hopefully I'm saying it right. And Ubuntu means I am because we are. South African word. I am because we are. And that's why it was our theme, that we have to create communities in our businesses that we realize that it's about the collective, right? There's no self-made anyone. It's a village, right? And that is really, really important. The end of last year, since the pandemic, this is the American Customer Satisfaction Index that measures every industry. And look at, since 2018, it started to decline and then just dropped like the Titanic since 2018, when the Customer Satisfaction Index hit the height of the ratings, right up there to about 77%. Middle of last year, it hit a 22-decade low, right? And we can all see why. And so it's important. I love this quote, probably because it's my quote, right? The companies that don't invest in customer experience are the ones that their leaders don't understand the financial impact customer experience can. So we like to call it return on experience. If you see, now we just showed you the overall American customer ACSI scores. Now, if you look at the top 10% of companies in every industry that dominate the customer satisfaction, they are 4 times more return on investment, more profitable than even the S&P 500. That's not talking about their industry or competition. And there's also some great studies, financial performance versus customer loyalty. So around the same time, 20 years ago, one of the best-selling all-time books, Good to Great, came out, and so did The Ultimate Question, which is based on the Net Promoter Score. Now, here are the companies that Good to Great featured. Okay, and the reason that they featured was their past financial performance. Okay, now the Ultimate Question, the companies they featured were the best at the NPS in their industries. Now, if you look 20 years later at these two groups, that's a Good to Great company return on investment, and look at the NPS. So you could actually totally, listen, I am not a stock advisor, not a stock guru. Do not take stock advice from me, but I started investing, a majority of my financial investments in the top NPS and ACSI companies. And they are crushing the S&P. So it's incredible. This is what Fred Reichel had to say about the difference in these two companies. Like most firms, the Good to Great gauge their success using the metrics on financial capitalism, primarily profits. And when profits become purpose, it becomes too easy for large and powerful firms to boost their financial performance by shortchanging both their customer base and their employees. A couple more, this is, Net Promoter Score provides real value. So it shows the comparison 2 times. And then this last one is really incredible. If you just look at, the automotive industry, that's the highest rated NPS and, financial performance. Now, one of the benefits of this is, I know the people on this call probably already stress and make the customer experience a higher priority. If you don't, you're going to get these slides. And if you're not a CEO, I know we have some CEOs on this, but if you're not a CEO, this is what you need to get executive sponsorship, right? But here's something that we all gotta, the tide is trending. So I showed you the middle of last year, the ACSI. This is Q3, last quarter. Look at how it's coming back. So our competition has woken up. right? You're not the only one that knows the secret anymore, and it has come back significantly. So everyone's jumping on the bandwagon now, and we can't be the tallest of a bad group, right? So we're going to talk about how. And everything comes from the 10 Commandments methodology. And every world-class customer experience company I've ever studied and worked with follows this. So there's a link to this. You'll get links again to the slides and this methodology. So this is really important. So this is what we do with all our companies. But here's where we want to start. The 8 things world-class customer service brands do that their competitors don't, and why they outperform. Number 1 is service aptitude training. This is the number 1 thing the C-suite gets wrong with customer experience. They think that customer experience, soft skills, is common sense innate. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. There's 3 places employees, mine, yours, our existing generation of employees, and our future generation of employees, how our service aptitude has gotten shape and gets shape. Previous life experiences, right? None of us grew up, most of us didn't grow up flying first class, staying at 5-star resorts, going to 5 diamond, restaurants and hotels, and getting, $250 haircuts. Yet we were all expected to give those type of experiences to our customers in our first 10 jobs when we entered our careers. And it's not fair because we don't know what it looks like, right? The second one is previous work experiences. None of us have a direct pipeline to former Chick-fil-A, Disney, Ritz-Carlton employees. Which means that they've worked somewhere else, probably multiple places, that will brainwash them not to trust their customers, not to allow customers to get away with going against policy. So these 2 things, the first 2, we can't control. The only thing we control is what we do with them after we hire them. So it's really important that we not only train our new employees on the operational and technical, and dotting the I's and slashing the T's, but the soft skill, how to make a brilliant comeback when we drop the ball, how to show compassion and empathy, how to create a rapport. So one of the best tools we've ever helped companies create, and you can do this, is a service aptitude test. We call it an ESAT, employee service aptitude test, because we have a CSAT, which is a company service aptitude test. So I just want to explain what this looks like. And it is so easy for you to create. It is a simple multiple choice test. And you can start with 10 questions today. And sadly, you'll be able to add 2 to 5 a week, and get it up to 100. And here's why. Something will happen today, this week, that you'll be frustrated. A customer will complain, will post on Yelp, will get a hold of you and say, and you can't believe, someone on your team handled it that way. Well, that's a future service aptitude test. So let me just give you an example of a service aptitude test. First off, 90% of the time, now we don't recommend giving this test to in your hiring process. Okay. There's a lot of legalities and all that. But what companies do is they will give it after someone's hired to see where they're at. And then after they go through your customer experience training to make sure that they can, be released and start interacting with your customers, your public. But here's what happens when an employee takes a test. 90% of the time, it's obvious which that C, let's say, is the best of the 4 choices. And they will pick C and they will get it right. But the thing is that they wouldn't have known to do C if they didn't take that test. Now, on the flip side, in the 10% or more, where they don't pick the obvious best answer, that is great, because you will say, hey, Lindsay, why did you pick B? When C's obviously the best answer. And Lindsay might say, well, because at my last job, I would have gotten in trouble. I would have gotten fired for doing C. And that's a great learning opportunity. It's a great coaching opportunity. Hey, Lindsay, here, You'll never get in trouble for something you do. You'll get in trouble for something you don't do. We want you, don't punish 98% of the customers for what you're afraid 2%. So let me just give you a quick example. What if a customer wants a product that we're currently out of stock on? A, tell them we're out of stock and to check back with us next month, right? B, offer another comparable product at the same price. And C, recommend a competitor's, who has it. So hopefully if B is the option, great, let's go with that. But, in my world, I want them to do C if B is not there. So again, I'm not telling you what your answer should be, but you can see it very easy. It's a great test. And going with CX, soft skills, customer experience, power skills is really important, and empathy. Right. And if you've worked with us before, you've seen a day in the life. I see people on here that's created multiple day in the life of their customer videos. And this is what they can look like. It's someone who just found out his son got accepted at NYU, concerned with loss of revenue too. And these are, your customers that may be reporting to you. We will provide a link to a great day in the life of a customer video to show you an example that you can watch, you can play to your team, and you can replicate on your own. But this really helps us be present, not look at everyone as next, our 1030, table 42, whatever we may transactionalize, and realize that people need two things from us: our presence, our compassion and empathy, to be in the moment. And the second thing is how important our expertise is to the success of their day. Another one, kindness. It is cool to care today. The best companies have the day maker dopamine. And what that looks like is anytime we on this call has made someone's day, right? Just knocked it out of the park. Maybe paid the guy's toll behind us who we don't know and will never meet. Who feels the best at the end of the day? We do, the day maker. And that's what the day maker dopamine, when your employees engage in act of kindness, it leads to a release of dopamine associated with pleasure and reward. This is also referred to the helper's high, and why people feel so good when they help others. It's not just the key driver in best-in-class customer experience, but it's about employee satisfaction. So when you create a culture that takes the handcuffs off, encourages and gives the autonomy to take care of people. And that's why we always feel so good at this time of year. This is a best practice personally that I do. I this time of year, right? I go to the bank and literally take out $2,000, and I want $100 increments. And this time of the year, I will randomly give the kid that's loading the groceries in the back of my car, or just odd people, I will just give them $100 tip, and the look on their face. But I'm the one that feels the best, right? So we got to make this part, not that example, but we got to make this part of our culture, to look for that. And then there's a conversation gift. And many of you, if you've been around, know that you look for the Ford, right? Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Focusing on Ford allows your customer-facing employees to be less about them, right? And focusing and trying to learn and hear things of people's Ford. And that's when the magic happens. These are some examples. New Day and KeyBank, clients of ours, they have Ford sheets next to their phones, or at the bank. So if they hear it, they can jot it down and then follow it up. And the last super power of soft skills is listening. Right. And this is really important. There's a difference between listening and waiting for your turn to speak. And it's really, really important. Listen, every generation has a decline in people skills, but we do have 30 and unders that, at no fault of their own, just grew up relationship disadvantaged. They grew up with an iPad in their hands. But I have found we have over 100 30 and unders that work for us in our companies, and they are rock stars once we teach them this. It's not innate. It's not something that they've grown up with. It wasn't taught at home. It's not taught at school. We have to help teach them. I'm sorry. The fourth superpower is curiosity. Love this one. You must have insatiable curiosity, dying to learn about others. This can be taught. And not only learning about, what you like to talk about, but what unfamiliar subjects. Fierce attention is when you ask one question. If you don't ask 2 to 3 follow-up questions, odds are you weren't listening. So you want a 4-to-1 ratio of questions asked versus answered. Okay, the second thing that world-class brands do that their competition doesn't do is they remove personal interpretation. And what I mean by that is, if I tell everyone on this webinar, if I tell 500 people in a company to go, deliver genuine hospitality, okay, how many interpretations will I get? 500. Right. So world-class removes personal interpretation. So this, what I mean by this, and this is more of a brick and mortar example, but what I mean by genuine hospitality for my team is you got to deliver the 5 E's, right? The 5 E's take less than 5 seconds, and the first 3 take 1 second, right? Eye contact, enthusiastic greet, ear to ear smile, right? That takes 1 second to do. Engage means it's about, Chris. It's not about me, right? Focus on Chris's forward, what's going on in Chris's life. And then finally, educate. What educate means is every time someone talks to someone on your team, they should leave that interaction saying, damn, there's no one smarter at their job than that person. So eye contact, enthusiastic greet, ear to ear smile, engage, and educate. Another example is what Chick-fil-A does, what they teach their 19 to 23-year-olds when a customer has a complaint. There's a customer challenge, is last. Okay. And last stands for listen, apologize, solve, and thank. So there's a consistency. You're removing employee roulette. So there's not like you get one reaction when you deal with one location or one employee and a totally different one. All right. Number 3 leads right into employee roulette. We're all guilty of, and it might be employee roulette, it might be department roulette, it might be location roulette. And employee roulette is when the level of experience your clients receive is dependent on which employee they encounter. So how do you reduce employee roulette? All right. First thing is you got to, have TOMA. TOMA, it means top of mind awareness. And what that means is if you do customer experience training once a year, that's deodorant. Okay. You might impact them. If anyone's on this and this webinar, I may peak your service aptitude for the next 7 to 10 days. But then if that's all you do, right, you'll gravitate back to the minutia of your job and it'll go away. And that gets worse as you get closer to the customer facing positions. So how do you have top of mind awareness? You visit this constantly. The best companies visit this for 3 to 5 minutes every day, right? In their pre-shift huddles, in what they're sending out, in their Zoom calls, they're celebrating, hey, I want to let everyone know what Lindsay did for a client today. And then that kind of puts peer pressure, positive peer pressure on. This is our culture. You should be doing that today too. So this is a customer experience cycle. We all have it. Okay, we all have it. This is like a retail. This is the same for coming into a hair salon, a restaurant, to a doctor's office, business to business, which is actually the majority of our clients. Those are more complicated, but it's the same thing of the sales side to when it's handed off to operations and consulting and legal and accounting. But we all have standard points of contact. You break each one of those down into 3 columns. All right. What are the service defects that can happen that we or our industry are known for? And while you can think of 15, 30, 100 service defects, you only want to come up with the top 4. It's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we are dropping the ball in these 24 areas, right? So if you're going to work for me in any of my businesses, you're going to know the 4 things we are not going to be guilty of that the rest of our industry is guilty of. Do not be guilty of this. The rest are probably anomalies that I think you're going to have, enough common sense to know how to put out, or if the power goes out, yeah, that's a service defect, but that's nothing you could have done probably to avoid it. The middle column is what we have to do every time. Okay, non-negotiables. We don't want that list to be 20 to 35. We want that short but impactful that most of our competitors aren't doing. And more importantly is that we do it every time. I don't care if everyone's called in sick. I don't care if you're running late. That's our experience, which means that's our promise, and that reduces the experience gap. And then finally, the above and beyond is, hey, train your employees to look for these things. Again, you could probably think of maybe 12 to 15. Just give them the top 4 above and beyond opportunities that may present themselves, and they'll start seeing it. Okay. And then nevers and always. This is the one of the most popular, powerful things. These are different than the actual things that happen at its stage. They're kind of similar from a never, which is like the service defect, and the always, which is the non-negotiable. But the previous at the customer experience, right? When someone calls up, when someone walks in, when we sign a new client, those are certain things that have to happen at that specific stage. The difference between nevers and always is they may or may not happen today. They're more universal. Okay. So you see, never say no. Okay. You may not be put in a position to say no today. But if you are, don't focus on what you can do. That's the always. So the nevers and always are kind of universal. We only want, a few, 6 to 8, maybe 10, but you can see the examples. Okay. And another thing here is really important is just because you hire a new employee today, which you have to, right? We're growing, we have turnover, we have attrition. Just because you have a new employee that's starting today, this week, this month, your customer experience shouldn't suffer. So meaning if I am a regular and you just hired Sally, put her on the floor, put her on the phones, and I'm a VIP, unless you're giving me a discount today, I expect the same experience. And you might think, John, that's really harsh. That's hard. I mean, Sally's not going to be. So you have to build in silent cues and visual triggers to help Sally give and personalize the same type of experience that the rest of. Now, yes, she probably won't know the depth, but it can't fall off. So example from my first book, Secret Service, that I wrote 21 years ago, that we still use today, and companies in the B2B and B2C use something similar. So if you come into my first business, John Robert Spa, 30 years old, you're going to see a bunch of people getting their hair cut. You may see, 8, 9 in a black John Roberts haircut and cape. You may see 1 or 2 in a white John Roberts haircut and cape. What's that mean to you, our guest? We have black and white capes. What's that mean to anyone that works at John Roberts Spa? That black capes have been here before. White capes have never been here before. So not only is the person that's working with you knows how to personalize it, but anyone walking by, a manager, another employee can stop and say, hey, welcome back. Great to see you again. Or introduce themselves and say, how was your first experience at John Roberts? May I get you more call? I'm Suzanne. I work in a different department. And people are like, is there a sign on our back? No. We just pay attention. And the client has never realized that they're in a white cape. But doctors' offices use different color clipboards. There's a great dry cleaner in Miami, Florida called Sudsies that they've taken this and they teach their customer service reps. If someone comes in with a white dry cleaning bag, they've been a customer for less than 6 months. So I want you to tell them other things we do besides dry cleaning. We do tailoring here. We do, wedding garments, and we do your God, I'm thinking whatever we put on our windows, drapes and all that stuff. If you see someone bring in a black black dry cleaning bag, that means they've been a customer for more than 6 months. You don't have to read them the menu, just greet them as such. If you see someone pull up and they have a gold dry cleaning bag in their back seat, they spend $15,000 or more a year here, right? They're a VIP. I want you to run out and carry the bag. And actually, I want you to run out and carry them inside. So you can see that you don't have, if you work in these businesses, your employees work in these businesses, they don't have to have worked here 3 years, 3 months, or 3 hours to understand how to personalize the experience. American Express does it. Whenever I've called it American Express, they always say 2 things before I hang up. Is there anything else we can do for you today, Mr. DiJulius? I say, no, thanks for asking. And then they say, we want to thank you for being a platinum VIP customer since 1998. And I hang up and say, wow, they must all talk about me every day, right? How do they know? They have it on their screen. So you could have just been hired, or you could have worked there 20 years. You could have spoken to me before, or you could never have spoken to me. So I brought that back to our database. And every time anyone touches someone, we can say the same thing. So how do you personalize it? And I will tell you, if you're a B2B, it's easier, because in the B2B world, okay, the brick and mortar, it's hard because a lot of times they don't have a database to cheat from, and they're not behind a computer. And if we're behind a computer and I'm having a conversation with a client, a potential client, I could pull up them in our database, look up on LinkedIn, look up their last transaction, interaction, order, where they're from, how's the fall or the winter going in Chicago or Buffalo or whatever they are. Okay, the next one, number 4, is be in the certainty business. I love this. The number one cause of anxiety is uncertainty. That's why the pandemic was such a wreck to most people mentally, okay? Because there was no certainty. It wasn't like, well, just wait a month and everything will be back to normal. So they did a study where they brought a large group of people into an auditorium, okay? And the facilitator said, listen, in the next 30 minutes, half of you are going to get an electric shock in your seat, right? It's not going to kill you, but it won't be too comfortable either. Okay. So we're going to give you 2 choices here. Choice number 1 is that you can roll the dice and see if you're the lucky or unlucky 50%. Or the other option is you can, opt in now and just get the electric shock out of the way. What do you think close to 80% chose? Taking the electric shock, right? Because people would rather have bad news than no news. So you got to be in the certainty business. So what does that look like? Let's go to the most extreme. Healthcare and financial. Those are the highest stressful, dealing with people's money and their health. So let's say you go to get an MRI today, and obviously you don't know, the outcome. And the lab tech who's putting you through the scan can't tell you. She can't be in the certainty business and say, patient Smith, these scans are going to come back excellent. Full bill. She can't say that. That's the certainty she can't give. But the certainty she can give is, patient Smith, I just, ran your scans. These are going to go to our radiology department. And within 24 hours, your doctor, and maybe on your chart, your healthcare chart, you will have the report back. That's the certainty she can give. So we want customers hate negative surprises. Don't let me find out when it's too late that you're out of stock. And what I mean by that, a lot of times we have a client that, we were helping them with being zero risk, which means, customer complaints. And one of their largest customer complaints, especially come out of the pandemic, was the supply chain issue. So, they were kind of like, it's not our fault that we can't get, inventory. You're right. But when are you letting your customers know that, they aren't getting their product? They weren't. It wasn't until they got the order. You get the order, you open up the box, and then you'd be looking for a product because the customer's there, because you told them your order comes on Tuesday, come in, and it wasn't there. And then they looked at the billing invoice and it says, oh, out of stock, Let them know as soon as possible, before they tell the customer, before Tuesday's order come, and give them the option of how they can, comparable product or back to a competitor that has that product. Delays, bad news, more expensive than originally quoted. You don't let the customer find that out when they get their invoice, right? And that it could be more expensive, and that could be my fault, your customer, because I've added or substituted or used. Just let me know. Hey, Mr. DiJulius, we can do that. Just understand that that's going to be X% or X. Yeah, go ahead with it. You got my approval. But when I get that invoice and it is 10% more, and I remember you quoting me this, I'm going to be fuming. So we want to eliminate mistakes. We want to eliminate surprises. Many of these we can't avoid. but we can be in the certainty business. All right, number 5, power of purpose. I think this is one of the silver linings that came out of the pandemic that reminded us the power of purpose for our employees. People want to be part of something larger than themselves. They want to be part of something that they're proud of, that they'll fight for, that they'll sacrifice for, that they trust. So one of the best things world-class companies have is a customer experience action statement, a client experience action statement, different from your mission statement, different from your purpose statement, different from your core values. All those are important. I have those, but if there's one thing I want my employees to know off the top of their head is their customer experience action statement. It's the North Star. It's the only thing we can do in the moment. The mission statement, John Roberts' mission statement is to change the world by creating a customer service revolution. I love that. Okay, I have the how, but at the end of the day, in an interaction, if you call Lindsay to schedule a call with me if you talk to Claudia about hiring us, she can't change the world by creating a customer service revolution in that interaction, right? That's an outcome that happens over the course of a long time, and that's a typical mission statement. A customer experience action statement is a clear call to action, what every employee should be intentionally doing every time they interact with a customer. So we helped Starbucks create theirs, and it was on the inside of their green apron for over a decade. Right? Why is it on the inside? Because unlike your mission statement and purpose and core values, you don't advertise this. You don't put it on the website. The only people you advertise it is to your employees. Okay. And you advertise it to them, and the how is the pillars underneath. Okay. The DiJulius Group's customer experience, client experience action statement is Carpe Momento, which stands for seize the moment. Okay. How we do that is through the 3 pillars: know more, care more, give more. No more. No one better be smarter at us at what we do. Now, Lindsay, deals with a lot of logistics, setting up for when we're going on site, book orders. She deals with so much. Now, so in Lindsay's case, while I know she's brilliant at customer experience, she doesn't know the in-depth of what our consultants know, but I don't expect her to. That's not her job. Her job is to know how to anticipate your needs, and you should not be asking for anything. She should be getting it to you before you even, I didn't even realize I needed that. Thank you. Care more, that you're not next, you're not a keynote in Nashville, you're not a consulting client, you're not attending our Customer Experience Executive Academy, only that you're a human being that has to make sure this investment pays off to look good to your company, and you got a lot of stress going on. And then give more is our above and beyond. So they stand for expertise, the human connection, and the above and beyond. And we all have invisible service providers. Invisible service providers are people who don't come in contact with the external customer, right? They're behind the scenes. They may work in the warehouse. They may work at headquarters, accounting. They may work at HR. They may work at marketing, internal. They may be back of the house staff. And that's critical for them. Create a day in the life of their customer, which is their team members, operations. But I want to tell you something that Medtronics does that I love. Medtronics is a company that manufactures heart valves and other things like that. So pretend you work at Medtronics and you work in a lab, and you're developing and putting pieces and parts together, maybe on an assembly line that then gets put in a box and gets shipped off to a hospital that they then put into a patient's, body, right? So you don't see the end results. And so I may say to you, hey, what do you do? And you say, I work in a lab. I work on an assembly line putting pieces and parts. And you might not have as much pride and purpose for your job until you see what Medtronics do. At least once a year, Medtronics brings in patients who have Medtronic parts in their bodies to like an event, a gala with all their invisible service providers. And you're walking around, and you may work in the lab at Medtronics, and you bump into a patient and you start talking to them. And that patient explains to you that they just walked their daughter down the aisle last month, but 2 years ago, it didn't look like they were going to be around to do that. Because your attention to detail, they were able to do that. Guess what the bounce and the step of is that Medtronic invisible service. Guess what they're looking forward to is coming to work and working harder. So make sure you have purpose and you tie it in. All right, the service recovery paradox. You want to have a great customer loyalty strategy? Screw up first. Okay, there is a customer service recovery paradox, and what it means is if you buy something, deal with a company, you have certain expectations that if they deliver it, you may or may not be loyal, unless you get a better offer. You meet someone that does it, whatever. This says that 97% of customers return if a brand screws up, but then makes it right. So a couple things here, right? And think of yourself. You've all been through this where you've been on both ends, where a brand screwed up and was like, whatever, it's no big deal. And a brand that screws up and makes it up. And you're like, I'm never going anywhere else again. Okay. So charitable assumption. Charitable assumption means don't punish 98% of your customers for it. You're afraid 2%. So back in the day, when I was involved, I haven't been involved in the salons in over 20, 25 years. But back in the day, when I was involved in my salons, I had a rule that if it gets to, I probably still have this rule. If it gets to me, it's free, right? Don't make it get to me. Handle it. Because if it gets to me, no one wants to call the GM, the vice president, the owner up. And if they do, they've not only, they've already told 20 other people and they're fuming. So I wanted to, be taken care of. So 25, 26 years ago, I had a guest at one of our salons call me up and say, Mr. DiJulius, I'm a customer of your Solon, Ohio location. And they got hair color on my sport jacket of my suits. I said, I'm so sorry. Can we get it clean? No, tried, can't. Can we replace it? They don't sell it any longer. May I send you a check? She goes, well, it's $250. I said, may I send you a check? She goes, you don't want to see it? I said, no. She goes, you don't want to know how old it is? I said, no. She was shocked, hung up. I looked her up to get her address, but I also saw that she's been a customer for 3 years. She comes about 6, 7 times a year, and she's never referred anybody. So I sent her a check for $250. I threw in a free massage or facial, whatever. I threw a gift card for her inconvenience. About a year and a half later, I looked her up. I was curious if we retained her because I was telling the story. And she had come in 7 more times in that following 12 months. And then I clicked on referrals. She referred 18 new customers. Let me ask you, what advertising can I spend $250 on to get 18 new customers? So I tell my employees to get color on everyone's clothes now. Another good example is this, opportunity to be a hero. We waited in line, me and one of my boys, for like 45 minutes for this ride at Disney. And we finally get up there. The cast members measures my son. He's too short, maybe a quarter of an inch too short, and says, you can't go on. And my son starts crying. The cast member bends down, says, what's your name? It's Johnny. Johnny, the next time you come to Disney, you'll probably be tall enough. And he gives him a ride pass, a ride skip card. Says the next time you come, you can walk by everyone in his line, hand this to us. If you're tall enough, you'll go on the next ride. How cool is that? Now, this is what I would have done with this kid seemed to be about 22, 23, the cast member at Disney. I would have, with my service after at 21, 22, 23, I would have said, Dad, Mom, get your sniveling, whiny kid out of my face. It's not my fault that he's not tall enough. It's not my fault that you missed the 6 signs somehow of how tall he was going to be. This happens to me 10 times an hour. I'm sick of this. But here's what Disney gets better than I ever got, better than most. While it's not our fault, it is our problem, right? So you got to look at what isn't your fault, but is going to be your problem. And Disney realized that Mom and Dad and Junior are going to leave Disney. Remember the long lines, the heat, and they spent $5,000 on and they couldn't get on half the rides. Instead, that thing was hanging up on my refrigerator at home. And every morning my son would say, can we go back? And I'd have to measure him and say, not yet. All right. Number 7, everyone spends time on the front lines in world-class brands. And what I mean by everyone is the CEO and C-suite. So Uber CEO became a driver and learned a ton. The new Uber CEO, not the old one. Airbnb, Brian Chesky spent 6 months living being a guest and then being a host, and found the core problems with Airbnb. And Starbucks, the new Starbucks CEO spends 4 hours a month as a barista, and has created a whole new strategy for going forward. And DoorDash requires every employee at corporate office, from engineers to CEOs, to make a food delivery or food deliveries for 4 hours, a month, right? Because in DoorDash's case, their number one customer is what they call their dashers, their drivers, right? Their second customer is restaurants. And then the third customer is actually the person being delivered. So you have to understand all the complexities and service defects and what could be happening, so you can help the drivers be more successful, which then has a ripple effect on the restaurants and the external customer. All right, number 8, create a return on experience dashboard. Okay, I love this. I have price mythbusters. Okay, and price mythbusters mean people think it only matters on price, and that's all people care about. So one of our clients we've been working with for 10 years is New Day USA. They deal with veterans of the military, and they had a problem called veteran opt-outs, and what that meant was, after the veteran was approved for their loan, which is the hard part, 15% would opt out before the loan closed. Okay, so that's why it's called the VOO, veteran opt out. That means they're fumbling the ball on the 1 yard line. Okay, all the work is done. Every 1% and this is every month, every 1% was worth close to $400,000 in revenue. Okay, now why their account executives who are in their mid-20s, okay, they said they were having veteran opt-outs because they were finding cheaper rates somewhere else. And Rob Posner, CEO, founder of New Day, said BS. He called BS. So we investigate, and we find out that the majority of the reason why they had the VOOs was that the account executives started ghosting the veterans that were in the pipeline already approved, and they were hustling on the people that weren't approved yet, the people that hasn't chosen New Day, the veterans that they needed to work to get approved, because that was their future money. They were accounting the commission on the ones that were approved. And then things would happen where they weren't communicating. Maybe the closing date moved 2 days because the appraisal was late, or this was late, or they needed it. And we've all moved. And you know the domino effect when you have your date of moving set up for January 5th, right? The domino effect is crazy. And if you don't communicate that in enough time, so they created we with them created a mechanism, a return on experience dashboard that measured every time an account executive did not communicate with a veteran every 48 hours. If they did not communicate with a veteran every 48 hours, that just might be, I have nothing to tell you. Everything's still everything's looking good. Do you have any questions for me? Boom. Right? It had to update them every 48 hours. If they didn't, the loan froze. If the loan froze, they couldn't get into it. If the loan froze, Rob Posner, his COO, the VP of sales, and your supervisor all found out about it. Because of that, over 5 months, their average monthly VOO went from 15% to 8%, a reduction of 7% in VOOs. And Rob Posner is still frustrated that there's 8% out there, but that right there was worth $200 million in revenue per month. Okay, so my challenge to you is find out what your VOO is. Everyone has a VOO. What is the one thing that you have to change? Okay, one more price mythbuster. We worked with a company called Worldwide Express. 19% of their customers are leaving per year due to lower prices. So they thought. We found out, again, it was poor communication, those negative surprises that we talked about, not being in a certainty business. So I'm going to show you a video of their president talking about this at a conference we weren't even at.
A key point in time where we hit about 80 million in sales, And we were growing fast, but we hit this point and we couldn't grow because our attrition rate was so high. We had 19% attrition, customer attrition. And my friend here said, listen, let's get John DiJulius involved. So I met with John and he told me about all of his customer experience programs. He said, listen, why don't you try it out for a year? I said, we're going to commit to 3 years right now. And I turned to every single person in my company. I said, we are committing to a 3-year program because that has to be the difference between us and the other 10,000 people who are out there selling our customers. So we hired them, and in 18 months, our attrition rate went from 19% to 3%. Our sales went from 80 million to 120 million.
Attrition went from 19% to 3%, right? 80 million in sales to 120 million. The companies that don't invest in customer experience are the ones that their leaders don't understand the financial impact customer experience can have. So those are the 8 things world-class brands do that the competition doesn't do. You should make this your focus for 2024. We do have a customer experience executive academy that sells out every year. It is a like master's degree in customer experience. It's the Harvard of customer experience. We have a class starting in January 2024, the end of January. Better than what you learn, you know, your customer experience leader is that getting connected with the other 24 customer experience leaders in that room. They become your board of advisors. It's a 12-month course where your customer experience executive leader comes to Cleveland, beautiful Cleveland, the capital of customer service, and they come to Cleveland for 3 days every quarter for 1 year. It's intense. And we also have upcoming webinars, those barcodes, and you also get these slides. Next week, Dave is doing, Murray is doing the Employee Experience Revolution. That's our new book that's coming out in 2024. He's doing a webinar on that. And then on Tuesday, December 19th, Nicole Paul will be doing a webinar on how to become a great customer experience leader. And one more webinar you'll get notified on is after the holidays, we have a presentation skills for the corporate world webinar. So I am going to stop sharing here and love to take questions. Anything you want to ask me, and we don't have to cut it off if you have time.
Perfect. So I'm going to give a minute just we did get some questions in. A lot of it was stuff that they want additionally sent to them. So I will absolutely include all of that in the follow-up email. And I just want to mention, I know John has already stated that we're going to send over a few things, including his slide deck. But you'll also receive as well a video copy of his presentation with the slide deck. So you'll receive all of that information on how to reach out and who to reach out to if you have any additional questions. All of the information about the webinars and registration links will be included. So definitely be on the lookout for that by the end of day today for sure.
And this webinar will be, you may have said it, Lindsay, but downloadable, and you could share it with your team.
Absolutely. Yep. We'll send you the link. It'll be actually loaded into YouTube, and then anyone with that link will absolutely be able to view it so you can share.
So does anybody have any questions? You could say, John, this is all well and good, but it doesn't apply to our industry, our business, whatever I can help you with. You can type it in, raise your hand, I think. Can you raise your hand? Oh, no, I guess you can't raise your, can you raise your hand? No, right, because we can't see you.
Yeah. I'm checking everything just to see if anything comes through here.
All right. If no one has any questions, I hope
hold on 1 second. Let me see what this is. Oh, okay. Wait, here we go. All right. So, Ivana, hi. said, thank you for all that you do. I just spoke to her earlier this week. And then we have a question from Ashley. Let's see. It says, a lot of what you discuss is in regards to external customers. Is there anything you can expand upon that focuses on internal as in employee satisfaction, retention, everything?
So that's next Tuesday, correct me if I'm wrong, webinar that we're having by Dave Murray, who is the co-author along with me on our brand new book, my 6th book coming out next year in the second quarter of 2024, called The Employee Experience Revolution. And that covers, from how to develop emerging leaders, how to create a recruitment experience, how to create an onboarding experience, and then how to build a culture moat, what I call a culture moat with alligators in it, around your rock stars, that they don't want to go anywhere else, and everyone that's recruiting them will get eaten by the alligators. So I'm really excited about this, and you'll learn a lot about that on Tuesday. If you want, you could pre-order the book on our website now, but I would join that webinar on Tuesday. And that's really what our focus is, because that's our #1 requested thing right now by the DiJulius group in our consulting practice. A lot of, and this is really why we not shifted, but added to this, that when we go into work with a company and we're about to create the customer experience systems, a little bit of way through, they say, we got to stop. None of this is going to work if we don't make the employees happier. So we really got to, what's happens on the inside is going to be felt on the outside.
Awesome. All right. Next question. Where would you recommend starting to train 300 plus employees on customer aptitude? They're very focused on customer experience within our customer care team, but making an intentional effort with all other teams and departments in 2024.
So if we're talking about, so that's another thing that Dave will be covering, and it's another key element in the book, is world-class internal culture and what that means. Okay, so I just gave you, I think, the first answer is, all right, do these things, create a service aptitude test, create a customer experience action statement, sell it, all those things. What Dave is going to talk about a little bit on Tuesday, and what the book has an entire chapter on, is world-class internal culture. And what that means is working with each other, the departments, how sales works with operations, and how each other home office works with operations, on support, all those things that we work in silos. And some, and teaching invisible service providers, teaching sales what a day in the life of support looks like, teaching support what a day in the life of the frontline employee looks like. Because a lot of times we don't realize, and we just assume, Lindsay, what the hell you do all day? I've asked you for what I don't realize is 57 things, and you're not getting back to me. Well, if you knew what a day in the life of Lindsay is, you'd better understand that I'm not the only one asking her for things. Customers are asking her for things. 5 other consultants are asking her for things. And then all of a sudden I realize, or vice versa, Lindsay needs to understand a day in the life of a consultant. When a consultant or in sales, someone is asking for a proposal, and they have to get that to them because 3 other proposals are getting that to them. And Lindsay, so that's a great question of breaking down the silos, understanding what the other departments have and how the impact we have helps them.
Absolutely. All right. Next question. It's from Hilda. So she mentions employee roulette. So how would you recommend how to help an employee that has been there for 10 plus years when they give pushback in regards to new training to better our services or customers or new systems, and to keep them from discouraging the new employees at the same time?
So Hilda, that's a great question. One of the things I always say is what happens will trump what you train people on. Meaning if you have a new group of employees and you say, listen, we do the white cape and we do Ford and we do this, and then they go out there and they start working with their coworkers, seasoned coworkers, and they don't do that, they're eventually not going to do that. So it is critical, right? New employees need to get trained. So one of the best ways, if this person's valuable with seniority, but has influence, is make them part of the solution. right? So go to that person and say, Matthew, I respect you. You know this job as well as anyone. You've been doing it for 10 years. We need to reduce employee roulette. We need to get not only these new employees, but everyone on consistently. Can you help me and be on a steering committee? Can you be on this? And when you get their buy-in, they take over. Versus if you create this and then come out and say, we're doing this, this, and this, Matthew's going to roll his eyes, say, listen, everyone, it's flavor of the month. He just read a book. He just attended a webinar. She just got back from a conference and she'll be on to something else next month. So make that person part of the solution and they will make sure it works because they came up with it.
Awesome. I love all the questions. This has been absolutely fantastic. I think we're good. Bill just said, fantastic webinar. So many great takeaways. And I look forward to reading Customer Service Revolution. Thank you, Bill. All right. All right. So expect to follow up with everything that we promised. Again, the PDF slides and Hilda said, thank you, John.
My pleasure.
Copy of the video recording. And then all of the other links that John mentioned that we will definitely make sure that we include and send your way. Thank you guys so much for joining us today and enjoy the
Thanks,
rest.
everyone. Happy holidays. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.